41 people have been arrested and taken into ICE custody after a trafficking raid at a strip club in Dallas.
Federal agents say this wasn't just a club, it was a front for a full-blown human trafficking ring. These 41 human smugglers were allegedly smuggling vulnerable young women into the country and forcing them into illegal activities once they got here. And here's where it gets wild. The neighbors had no idea what was going on.
They have a guard outside that manages everything like that. You can't just get in there. They have perimeter control.
But behind those neon lights and that catchy name, something much darker was happening. Because this raid didn't just expose human traffickers, it exposed an entire underground network hiding in plain sight.
Who is funding this violence and this chaos against our law enforcement? Is it domestic? Is it international? Is it foreign? We will get to the bottom of it.
The operation was led by Homeland Security Investigations with help from state and local police, and it was massive. Neighbors say they first heard helicopters circling overhead before the entire block around Chicas Bonitas Cabaret, that busy strip club on Harry Hines Boulevard, lit up red and blue. Within minutes, the whole area was swarming with armed agents. One neighbor told reporters it looked like something out of a movie. SWAT trucks, floodlights, and officers blocking every single exit.
I, of course, heard about raids like that, but I didn't expect the ferocity in it. There were so many armed men and women.
Inside the club, pure chaos. The music was still blasting when ICE agents stormed in. People panicked. Some ran for the back. Others ducked behind the bar. But there was nowhere to go. The place was surrounded. By the end of the night, 41 people were in handcuffs. Agents seized more than $30,000 in cash and grabbed stacks of business records they believe were tied to human trafficking and illegal employment. Out of everyone detained, 29 were reportedly working unlawfully at the club. And here's where it gets even darker. According to ICE, at least 5 people arrested had prior criminal records, including assault, prostitution, and multiple DUIs. One man had even entered the U.S. illegally 10 times. 10.
Didn't seem like they were being cloistered or held or anything like that, so I can't imagine. They said that there was human trafficking.
HSI's Dallas Special Agent in Charge, Travis Pickard, called the operation a big win in their fight against trafficking, saying, "We're committed to eradicating the vile scourge of trafficking from our local communities, and this raid was about disrupting those who profit off it." But what really shocked everyone wasn't just the arrests, it was where it happened. Because for years, Chicas Bonitas looked like any other packed nightlife spot. No one suspected it was allegedly hiding a full-blown trafficking ring right in the middle of Dallas nightlife. So here's where things start to get really disturbing. What agents found inside Chicas Bonitas Cabaret wasn't just a few undocumented workers or shady business records. It was the outline of a human smuggling network hiding in plain sight. According to investigators, this whole operation allegedly started south of the border in Mexico and parts of Central America. Recruiters, often posing as job agents, targeted young women who were desperate for work or a way to cross the border safely. They were promised legitimate jobs, waitressing, bartending, maybe even dancing at what they were told were high-end entertainment clubs in the US. But once they arrived, that dream completely fell apart. Their passports were taken, supposedly for safekeeping. Their wages were withheld, often under fake excuses about travel costs or visa fees. And their freedom? Gone. Many of these women were threatened with deportation if they tried to leave or report what was happening. Others were allegedly coerced into illegal activities to repay debts. It's classic trafficking manipulation. Create dependence, then control through fear. Now, investigators believe Chicas Bonitas wasn't working alone. They think it's part of a bigger network, a trafficking pipeline that stretches across multiple states. We're talking Houston, Austin, Las Vegas, Atlanta, and even Colorado.
Significant trafficking, prostitution, and crimes of violence were happening inside the nightclub located near Airport Road and South Academy Boulevard.
Victims were allegedly rotated between clubs every few months, a move that made it harder for law enforcement to trace them and harder for victims to build connections or find help. And here's the twisted part. Some insiders told investigators that traffickers viewed strip clubs as safe zones. Why? Because law enforcement usually avoids raiding nightlife spots. It's risky, it's messy, and the optics are terrible. Nobody wants cameras rolling as agents storm a club full of dancers and customers. But ever since Donald Trump returned to office, that hesitation seems to be gone. ICE has been intensifying targeted raids across the country, focusing on nightclubs, massage parlors, and bars suspected of harboring illegal activity. And every single time, what they're finding is worse than the last. One of the largest and most shocking raids happened in Colorado Springs, and what agents uncovered inside left even veteran investigators speechless. According to the DEA's Rocky Mountain Division, the club wasn't just breaking a few laws, it was allegedly a full-blown crime hub, with trafficking, prostitution, and violent gang activity all happening under one roof. Federal surveillance teams had been watching the place for months, documenting what they described as a revolving door of criminal activity. At one point, agents even caught people firing guns out of car windows near the club. When agents finally moved in early that Sunday morning, they came prepared. The building was surrounded from all sides as officers shouted commands over loudspeakers, first in English, then in Spanish. When no one responded, they broke through the front windows and stormed the club. Inside, it was chaos. Investigators found over 200 people crammed into the building. At least 114 were in the country illegally, and more than 100 were taken into federal custody on the spot. Video released by the DEA shows people scrambling out the back door, only to be met by heavily armed officers waiting outside. There was no escape. And get this, active-duty U.S. military members were among those caught in the raid. Some were even working as club security, allegedly helping protect the illegal operation.
We had over a dozen active duty service members in the club tonight, either as patrons or working as armed security.
During the sweep, agents seized guns, cocaine, and a designer drug known as pink cocaine, or Tusi.
What was happening inside was significant trafficking, prostitution, crimes of violence.
Even more shocking, investigators documented ties to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and even Hell's Angels. This wasn't a local crime scene. It was a criminal melting pot with connections that stretched across borders. In the aftermath, ICE took the undocumented migrants into custody. The Army's Criminal Investigation Division took over the military angle, and the DEA launched a multi-agency probe into the gang network operating behind the club. So, yeah, this wasn't your typical nightclub bust. It was a collision of gangs, drugs, trafficking, and even the US military, all hiding in plain sight. And yet, not everyone is on board with what ICE has been doing. Now, while a lot of people do support ICE's efforts to crack down on human trafficking and illegal immigration, others say they're targeting the wrong people and creating fear where there used to be trust. Take Robert, the car dealer right next to Chicas Bonitas Cabaret. He says the club was always respectful, calling them good neighbors who kept tight security.
They have a guard outside that manages everything like that. You can't just get in there. They have perimeter control.
He says he's never had problems with the club and was shocked to see agents with guns drawn surrounding it. Since that night, Robert says business at his dealership has nosedived. His customers, mostly Hispanic, are scared to even show up.
We usually have a lot more walk-in customers, but it's just no one's coming around this area. We don't know the extent of it because it's only been a few days, it's only been since the weekend, but we do fear it's going to have an impact.
And he's not the only one feeling that way. Across the country, public support for ICE has been shrinking. Viral videos show officers getting rough, not just with undocumented migrants, but with U.S. citizens. Experts say the agency's tactics have become increasingly aggressive, using pepper spray, smashing car windows, even deploying smoke bombs during raids. Some call it necessary for dangerous situations. Others say it's fear-inducing and excessive, especially when it's ordinary people caught in the middle. In one shocking video, ICE agents are actually seen pulling a woman out of a car outside a school after she had dropped off her child. In New York City, video shows agents throwing a woman named Monica to the ground in front of her children, causing a serious head injury. That case is now under Department of Justice investigation for potential civil rights violations. And it's not just individuals pushing back. Entire cities are rebelling. In sanctuary cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, protests have exploded. Mayors in those cities have publicly vowed not to cooperate with ICE, and local police are refusing to share information, creating a full-blown standoff with federal agents.
You gotta be really sick and demented to do this to people.
In Chicago, videos show tense confrontations between ICE and residents with tear gas, tackles, even gunfire in some cases.
Agents were boxed in by 10 cars this morning. When agents got out, DHS says they saw one of the drivers that cornered them had a gun. They say the agents shot at her in self-defense.
Attorneys and advocates say agents are poorly trained in de-escalation, turning raids into war zones. Even politicians are speaking out, calling the raids an abuse of federal power. But as the protests grow louder, the anger is starting to boil over. What started as outrage in the streets has now turned deadly, and ICE officers have become a target. Just days before the Dallas strip club raid, chaos erupted at ICE facility in Dallas. 29-year-old Joshua John had climbed onto a nearby rooftop and opened fire on the ICE building, shooting into a crowd of detainees and agents below. At least one detainee died on the spot, and several others were critically injured. Agents say it could have been much worse if they hadn't returned fire and locked down the area in time. When investigators searched the shooter's apartment, they found handwritten notes calling ICE human traffickers and vowing to bring fear to the agency.
He wrote that he intended to maximize lethality against ICE personnel.
Authorities described it as a targeted act of domestic terrorism, fueled by growing anti-ICE sentiment across the country.
We now know that Jan engaged in significant, high degree of pre-attack planning. He searched for information about the office building and how to track ICE agents' locations.
And this isn't an isolated incident. Federal data shows that attacks and threats against ICE agents have skyrocketed, up more than 1,000% since early 2025. The Department of Homeland Security says the violence is being fueled by two sides: extremist anti-ICE groups and organized crime networks, including Mexican cartels, who now see ICE as their biggest threat. In some regions, especially along the border and in major cities like Chicago and Phoenix, cartel-linked gangs have started placing bounties on ICE officers.
The department says the cartels are offering thousands of dollars for those who gather information on federal officials and their families, and even more money for kidnapping or assassinating high-ranking officials.
Street-level enforcers, often members of groups like the Latin Kings, have been spotted tracking ICE patrols, using walkie-talkies to report their movements and warn smugglers in real time. DHS officials call it an organized campaign of terror against immigration enforcement. In cities like Los Angeles and Chicago, federal officers are now wearing body armor to and from work, and field offices are being guarded like military bases. Even routine immigration sweeps have become dangerous, with agents dodging ambushes, car chases, and in some cases, explosives planted along their routes. The government's response? Tightened security, more armed patrols, and a renewed promise from DHS leadership that ICE will not back down.
But President Trump has also ordered a task force to follow the funding. Who is funding this violence and this chaos against our law enforcement? Is it domestic? Is it international? Is it foreign? We will get to the bottom of it.
But here's the part that's got everyone uneasy. The escalation isn't slowing down, because the more ICE cracks down, the more violent the pushback becomes. And it's raising a chilling question. If federal agents are now being hunted on their own soil, what happens next? When the dust settles after each raid, it's not just traffickers or smugglers who feel the impact. It's everyone. In Dallas, Robert's car lot still sits quiet. The same man who once sold cars to night shift workers and bartenders now says the street feels deserted.
There's no one to buy anything. No one's doing anything. And they're not going to buy a car if there's a fear that they might be deported.
And that fear isn't just local. In cities across the country, from Houston to Los Angeles to Chicago, people are changing their routines. Parents are skipping work. Kids are staying home from school. Communities that used to thrive at night are now ghost towns after dark. Immigrant advocates call it a culture of silence. People are afraid to call 911, afraid to show up to court, even afraid to report crimes, because they don't know who's listening. or if the next knock on their door will be ICE. And while officials say these raids are about safety, critics argue that the line between law enforcement and intimidation has blurred. Videos of violent arrests, smashed windows, and terrified bystanders have spread online, turning ICE into one of the most polarizing agencies in America. Even some former ICE officials admit morale inside the agency has plummeted. Agents are facing constant threats, not just on duty, but online, at their homes, and in their neighborhoods. One agent told a reporter, "We're enforcing the law, but now we have to look over our shoulders just to pump gas." Meanwhile, the people ICE says it's trying to protect, the victims of trafficking, are often the ones who vanish first. They're too afraid to testify, too scared to trust anyone, and in many cases, they're deported before they can even speak. It's the perfect storm, fear on both sides, and no real winners. Because for every trafficker taken off the street, 100 families live in fear. For every raid that makes headlines, there's a small business like Robert's, empty, quiet, and waiting for customers who may never come back. And as the raids intensify, one question keeps echoing through the chaos. At what point does protection start to look like persecution?